no watch, but it's time to watch. The Downright Sports is back. NCAA College Preview Show is here. Who wins? Who loses? Who should it be in? What other bowl games should I watch? What should I do? Green tie. Say what? Downright Sports. Welcome back, everybody. That's right. I'm back. I'm here, and I'm making things very clear. Downright Sports here on YouTube has returned the sports show from a fan's perspective, what a fan may think, only from what a fan may think. Not an expert, but a fan. But today's show is different. If you've seen my show in the past, you know it's broken down a little bit differently. It was the must-know news, it's the topic, and then there's movies and video games. Today's show is different. This is a straight preview show for the college football playoffs, which begins January 1st. I bit my tongue. And the games, of course, played on January 1st will be the Sugar Bowl and the Rose Bowl. And we started off with, without a doubt, covering the Sugar Bowl, which is a rematch from this is round 3. The first time these two teams met was in the national championship game in 2016. The next time they met was last year, the national championship game, and now they meet in the semifinal. And those two teams are Clemson and Alabama, who have turned out to become pretty much what college football, the standard, what it means to be the best. That's who teams have been chasing all year. That's who teams want to be. That's who teams want to replace. But at the end of the day, no matter if they got one loss or no losses, they find themselves in the thick of it, and again, it happened this year. Clemson, who finished number 1 in the rankings this year after Alabama was number 1 all year. Alabama was suffered a loss. Clemson also suffered a loss. Clemson had a terrible loss against Syracuse, of all teams, and had Miami breathing down their neck all year. Miami came up short, couldn't get the job done in the ACC championship game. As for Alabama, they would lose to Auburn, knocking them out of the SEC championship game, and Alabama not playing in the championship game. But because Auburn will go ahead and lose to Georgia, and open the door for Alabama to return, because Alabama is that much better of a team. They just when you watch them, I don't care what their schedule says, but when you watch them, they are just that much better than every and anybody. That's how they roll. Clemson, same argument can be said. This year, Clemson could be said they're faster defensively than they were last year. They're faster offensively than they were last year. And that's how sick they are. When you look at the matchups for these two teams, both of them have quarterbacks that like to move. Not the most down the field throwing quarterbacks, but more able to hand off, more able to roll out option plays. And I'm talking about, respectively, for Clemson, Kelly Bryant, and for Alabama, Jalen Hurts. These two guys have, without a doubt, for Jalen, this is his second year. He played the championship game last year and was pretty good. And this year, he's looking even better. For Kelly Bryant, he's replacing a legend, and Watson, who last year just refused to lose. This kid last year, Watson, just went out there and, dare I say, balled out. If you look at his stats from last year, Watson, 36 for 56, 420 yards with 3 touchdowns. That's the national championship game. So Kelly, that's which you're following against this Alabama team. Hurt, who played last year, 13 for 31, 131 yards with 1 touchdown. The bulk of their offense came from their running back in Scarborough, who had 16 carries, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's where they got the bulk of their offense from last year. So Clemson, if we have to give an edge, Clemson will probably get the edge as far as quarterback goes. Defensively, we're looking at two teams that are kind of similar. Clemson, I covered the dang on paper. Clemson defensively is 19th in the passing game, in the rush game, while Alabama is 5th in all pass game, 2nd in rushing, making Alabama better defensively. So yes, Clemson may have a better offense, but what beats good offenses? Better defenses, and that's where Alabama kind of gets the edge up in all of that. Both teams got stud wide receivers that could go out there and do their thing. Neither team had a receiver though over 1,000 yards this year. No team, pretty much because the quarterbacks don't go down the field that often because they're more mobile. So, do we get the shootout we got 2 years ago? No. We're not going to. 2 years ago, when they first played, it was 45-40. We're not getting that this year. I can promise you that. Last year, it was a little closer to home. It was 35-31, but they also went into overtime, I believe, last year. Am I wrong? No overtime. Clemson just put up 21 points in the fourth quarter. But we'll see pretty much who's going to show up. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. I was too busy looking at this stupid monitor. Who's going to show up? Who's going to put their big boy pants on? Who gets the edge? Now, that's where coaching comes into effect, and nobody bets against Nick Saban, baby. Nick Saban, my man, is the Ric Flair of college football. Woo! With more championship rings than he can count. Now you got Dabo Swinney, who's got now 1 championship, to say, hey, I can talk at the big boy table now too. But at the end of the day, you're talking about Nick Saban, who's now seen you twice. He's beat you once. You squeaked out a championship. You squeaked out a win with a great performance from your quarterback. But now, can you do it for a 3rd straight time? I don't think so. I think who wins this game who wins this will go to the national championship but lose because they're going to be so fatigued from facing each other that they'll just be beat. This is the national championship game to Alabama and to Clemson because Alabama wanted to win last year. Clemson had to win last year, and now it comes down to this is it because you're not going to see this again. I put money on it. You will not see Bama Clemson Part 4. This is not a Rocky movie, all right? So who do I have? Is that on my script? Did I put that on my script? Who should win? I don't have that on my script, so I don't have to tell you. But I will tell you the odds. I think. Well, the odds, yes. Bama is a 2-1 odds with a they are -2. So Bama's picked to win. Go Clemson. All right. When we return to segment number 2, we talk the Rose Bowl. I just want to be a little bit quicker. Downright Sports. I'm moving up. Hello, time to talk Rose Bowl. Ain't that right, Jimmy? All right, check this out. So the Rose Bowl is going to take place the same night as the Sugar Bowl, January 1st for the semifinal. And those two teams participating in the Rose Bowl will be Oklahoma versus Georgia. As you see, there's a common theme this year for the playoffs, where it's basically all Southern boys, and the South has risen again because all the teams are from the South. Well, makes me happy, not because I'm from the South, but that means Ohio State didn't make it. Yay! You're gonna have the Heisman Trophy winner, Baker Mayfield, who basically balled out this year, versus Jake Fromm from Georgia, Two quarterbacks very different. Where you have Baker Mayfield, who is the offense, who basically this year over 4,000 yards, over 43,000 yards, 4,300 yards, 41 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. Let me say that again: 41 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Yeah, he won the Heisman. As for his counterpart on Georgia, Jake only had like 2,100 yards, 21 touchdowns, and he also had 5 interceptions. But more, their bulk of their offense comes from their run game, and Nick Chubb over 1,100 yards rushing this year, 13 touchdowns. Just a solid man on that line, boy. And that's what he did to Auburn when he sliced and diced them up and took care of them the way nobody else could have. This year, the question is Alabama ready? These teams ready to be on the stage? Georgia, of course, is an SEC school. These type of schools are prepared for these type of games, and they're supposed to be, respectively. But is this the game where, because I said it, in the Sugar Bowl, whoever wins the Sugar Bowl is going to be tired. I believe in this game here, you just gave the Heisman Trophy when a kid who loves the ball out, Baker Mayfield. You're giving him so much time to prep and rest. Now, Georgia has a very good defense. I may add, they're 8th in pass defense, 18th in rushing defense. So those guys can hit. And what do we know about SEC schools? They are more geared for the pros than others. Now, Oklahoma could be the exception because this is Oklahoma we're talking about here. Historical, legendary program. Always got draft picks in the NFL. Always in conversation for the national championship. So, are they? Is Oklahoma one of those schools that you could put in the SEC and they'd be ready to play right away? Probably. So the difference is Oklahoma, unlike Georgia, focused the bulk of their games and the bulk of their wins on strictly offense. And no better game could be told than when they played Oklahoma State this year, and pretty much they said, hey, we don't need the defense, just stand to the side, and what we're going to do is we're just going to throw the ball as many times as we can, and we'll see how we end up. Oklahoma's big win this year was my favorite win all year when they beat Ohio State 31-16 in Ohio State, and the Baker takes the Oklahoma flag and sticks it in the middle of the Ohio O and basically tells them to suck it. Oh, I loved every minute of it. And that could be the single game that kept Ohio State out. Well, it was really not. It was the Iowa. But I loved it. It was great. But yeah, take a look. This Oklahoma game. And Oklahoma's ranked 11th. Oklahoma State is ranked 11th, by the way. 62-52 was the final score of that game. Whew. Trying to give you an idea of Georgia. I was going to pull up stats of what Baker did in that game, but I don't have enough time. So just to give you an idea with Georgia, if they had any high-scoring games this year themselves, I think not. I don't think they've had against another formidable opponent now. We know these teams play cream puffs and put up points, but Georgia, when they played Notre Dame, which was their which was the game that kind of put them ahead of everybody, it was a 1-point win. They only beat Notre Dame. We found out Notre Dame was not as good as we thought they were, and they basically just barely beat them. They had against Auburn, who they lost to. Auburn put up 40 points against them the first time, but then Georgia would turn around and put up 28 against them, making it basically setting up a better defense. So what it looks like is when when Georgia's defense is ready, they stop you. But looking here, they have it against nobody. Missouri they put up 53, but nobody of consequence, no team, no marquee, no ranked opponent that they put up huge numbers like that. But to be fair, when they played Auburn in the SEC championship game, the final score was 28-7. Meaning, when those boys want to play defense, you better clank it down. But again, they didn't face Baker Mayfield. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, when we come back, we will talk about the other bowl games and should other teams have made it to the playoffs? Should there be a bigger playoff picture? Downright Sports. Hey, welcome back, Downright Sports. We close the show up. This college playoff preview show. It's crazy because when I do the show, people are like, "Oh, you're always looking down, you're looking away." Well, you have to forgive me. I don't have a statistician. I don't have interns to do this work for me. So I do what I can, and some stuff I leave out. I gotta go search for it. So deal with it. Anyway, some of the other bowl games that we have that I think you should watch. Some of them, one of them in particular, I am biased on because of a good friend of mine, my man, the OK man himself, Mr. Brad, and Mr. Stewart, my hero. Their big team, Virginia Tech, or as Stewart says, the Virginia School, will face the previous team I talked about in the last segment, Oklahoma State. Virginia Tech ranked 22nd this year and had a decent year. They played some tough teams though, and I think people don't give Virginia Tech enough credit for that. People say what they want about the SEC, but look at who Tech had to face this year. Tech faced Miami when they were red hot. They faced Clemson. They faced they had a terrible loss against Pitt. But other than that, you gotta give Tech easily could be one of those teams that could have easily been in the playoff conversation. I mean, seriously, they easily, if a ball slips up here, a win there, they're in the playoffs. They had a big win against West Virginia, old school rivalry game. They had a huge win over North Carolina, beat Duke, who's always very good. But look, they lost to Miami, Georgia Tech, and back-to-back games, which was not good, and they lost to Clemson. Outside of the Georgia Tech, Miami and Clemson aren't bad losses. They beat their rival, and they were beat up this year. They had a lot of injuries, and they beat up UVA at UVA. UVA didn't score, they didn't move the ball. Final score was 10-0. How crazy is that? And they didn't lose to Pitt. I was wrong. They did beat Pitt. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, we're going to face Oklahoma State, who's ranked 19th. Oklahoma State is always a good team to watch, if anything, because the head coach has a mullet. And how awesome is that? Grown man in the 2000s with a mullet. And if you know, he's the always popular head coach that came up with the famous word, "I'm a man. I'm 40. Look at me." that famous catchphrase. And I told you last segment, Oklahoma State had a shootout with Oklahoma earlier this year, but Oklahoma State, some notable victories for them. Texas in overtime, West Virginia, Iowa State, who Iowa State did beat Oklahoma and Ohio State, I think. No, Ohio State lost to Iowa. Big difference. But yeah, they had some, but they had some stupid losses. Like they lost to Kansas State. They lost to TCU, who was pretty good this year. But they had some big wins. But anyway, they're gonna face each other in the Camping World Bowl. The Camping World Bowl. All right. And so good luck to Virginia Tech in that one. Another bowl game to keep an eye on is the Cotton Bowl, USC versus Ohio State. I think could be a very good one. And then finally, the Fiesta Bowl, number 11 ranked Washington versus Penn State. I believe that may be the game. That may be the bowl game of all bowl games. I picked Washington to go to the playoffs, but they failed because they lost some games. But it's going to be interesting. I think it could be cool fun. The question is, as we speed this up and I make this real fast under this minute, should there be more teams in the playoffs? Initially, no. 4 was perfect. Let's see how this crap was going to work. Now that they have the format, I think what it's time to do is, because you're telling your conference championships don't matter. So I think what's important now is let's do this. Win your conference, every major conference. So you got the SEC, the ACC, the the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the Pac-12. So it's 5 conferences, right? You win your conference, you're in the playoffs. Let's leave it. So that's 5 spots. What about number 6, 8, 9? You take some either at large, some other schools, small schools, or teams that just finished right outside. Like if you made it to the conference championship game, or you're just right there. Like for example, this year, and it's hard. I'm not saying this is the easiest thing done, and the segment's going on too long. But for example, if you do like to look at the top 10 right now, so teams, if you're in the top 10, you can go. It just be that simple. Or you just right there on the bubble, you can go. You know, there's a way around it, but I think you're going to have to expand it. Now, I don't think it's stupid to make it 24 teams, but in the Division 2, they do it. So, there's a will, there's a way. Thank you, everybody, for watching another Downright Sports. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be back January 10th with my Hall of Fame show, my MLB Hall of Fame show. And after the Hall of Fame show, we'll be back on a steady cycle of shows because NBA playoffs, NBA All-Star, MLB season, the Super Bowl, WrestleMania, Rockapalooza. It's all coming. I made it the last one. Anyway, you guys enjoy. Deuces. Aloha. I don't know why I do that.